No. Excuse me. I'll wait for you. I'll be here. You don't have to go.
That's all. Last night, we started talking about some questions that come up related to what is that practical question that often comes up. Person takes down in order to be checked, takes it down to paint the room, the shiur, whatever it is. When you put it back up, do you have to say a new bracha? We saw it's very interesting that Rabbi Rishonim, this case is not addressed. The Achronim say, try and learn from the case of one who takes off the talit. You take off the talit and then you put it back on immediately or a few minutes afterwards. You take it off and you have the intent that it should go back on. Seemingly, that is similar to the case of one takes off the mezuzah. The intent to put it back up. We saw that in the case of the talit, there was a machloket. More common consensus seems to be that one would not make a new bracha. We said that may apply to the case of the mezuzah, but we said there are two differences. Number one, in terms of the time frame. And you take off your talit, a few minutes later you put it back on, take down the mezuzah for a day, a few days, sometimes longer than that. So that already may be a substantial period of time, which may necessitate a new bracha. And also the fact that you're not sure if you're putting the same mezuzah back up again or not. Maybe it's not considered you took it down in order to put it back. What if, another case that comes up, what if you take the mezuzah down with the intent of replacing it with a different mezuzah? So you know from the beginning, you are continuing the mitzvah, so to speak. The mitzvah was, you had a mezuzah on your doorpost, you're taking off the one that you have now to put a different one on. Would you be required to make a new bracha when you place the new mezuzah? Why would you want to switch it? Why would you take a new one? So obviously the old one may be pasul, or in a case whereby pasul, then you're not fulfilling the mitzvah. But it's kosher, you have a new mezuzah, which is what you're given a gift of the mezuzah, which is 100 and you'd rather have that than 100 mezuzah. So you put it up. Do you have to say a new bracha? It's the question I saw came up in Skanda and Bazat. And first of all, the first thing to point out that sometimes people get confused. When we talk about the mezuzah, what is the mezuzah? So it's the parchment, it's the cloth that's inside. We're not talking about, sounds obvious, but it's not always obvious to everybody. We're not talking about the case. So somebody wants to replace the mezuzah case. Okay, you have a clear plastic case and you're given a fancier case you want to put on top. So you take it down, literally within seconds, within minutes, the same cloth is there, the same mezuzah is there. Bring a different case on. So that would not necessitate making a new bracha. I saw a story actually yesterday. Somebody was a couple of years ago in the UAE, United Arab Emirates, and there was one of the diplomatic officials that was having a reception in their house, and they had a doll on the table, this little figure, plastic, whatever it was, of a turtle. And they said, they said, go have a look at this turtle that we have on the table. People didn't understand, what is this? This is a child's toy, what's the big deal? So they explained the story. This was days before the Abraham Accords, right? When there were no diplomatic relations between Israel and these countries, and you couldn't be a Jew, you couldn't be openly Jewish. Still at the time, there were certain diplomatic agents and officials that were in clandestine missions, and they had to pretend that they weren't Israeli, they weren't Jewish, they couldn't have any signs of Jewishness throughout the house. And somebody was, one of these officials, it was too much for them. So you have to live there without any single sign of Jewishness at all. They felt they wanted to have something. So they went and they made this, disguised this mezuzah. They hid the parchment inside this turtle, this figurine, whatever it was. And they had it up in the door. So the story, the first thing I wondered, not raise suspicion, they had a turtle on the doorpost. But anyway, that was the, so that was up there, and that's what they kept. And they kept it afterwards as a souvenir. That was part of what they had. But it goes without saying, that case, that cover is not the mezuzah itself. What is the mezuzah? Is that which is inside, which is the part. So again, it's interesting, like the previous case, we don't find that Rishonim discuss this case directly. Lots of talk about it in the Achronim, trying to extrapolate what's the case, what's the similar case from the maariv, from the Rishonim, to answer the question. Again, you take down mezuzah A, you replace it with mezuzah B immediately, let's say, would you have to make a new bracha? So the first case is the case of tzitzit. And the Rosh discusses the case whereby the person has a beged tzitzit, take off, and then you put on a different beged. So we have in the morning, talks there as well. You have the talit katan, and you have the talit gadol. We only say the bracha, we delay the bracha of the talit katan until we put on the talit gadol. That's the bracha of tzitzit. But if you take off one garment and replace it with another, so it's implied from the Rosh that you would then need to say, a new bracha. So your bracha of tzitzit the first time, you took off garment A, put on garment B, and there's a new bracha. So maybe we'll say, and that's the same, that's the case of Hamazuzah. Right? You took off one, you put the second one, same new bracha. So we can reject that for the following reason. With tzitzit, maybe there's a difference. Tzitzit, as we know, is a mitzvah shiurit as opposed to a mitzvah shiurit. But there is no obligation as such for an individual to wear tzitzit. There's an obligation if you have a four-cornered garment, it has to have tzitzit. So the minute that you're wearing a four-cornered garment, you're obligated to wear tzitzit. But nobody obligated you to wear a four-cornered garment in the first place. Therefore, you were wearing garment A, you were fulfilling that. You had that shiur once you were wearing it for the mitzvah. Okay, so now you take it off. Now you put on the second garment, it's a completely new thing. It's not the same shiur what tzitzit you had before. It's a new shiur from a new garment. So maybe that's not, as opposed to, that's the same house, same doorpost, always obligated in mezuzah. So maybe that is not the same. So case number two, move on from tzitzit, we move on to tefillin. Tefillin as well, we discussed yesterday. This case, what is the case when a person takes off their tefillin and then they go to the bathroom or something like that, and you come back and you put the tefillin back on. So there we saw the Gemara, Rabbi says, made a new bracha. We saw, discussed that there was a difference of opinion between the Beit Yosef and the Torah and the Darkei Moshe as to why it was. Maybe the case over there of saying a new bracha was only because the interaction, the hefsek was such that you could not at that moment fulfill the mitzvah of tefillin. All that is the more usual case where you're wearing the same pair of tefillin. What if you take those tefillin off and you have a new pair of tefillin? And then you would say, and then you have a new bracha. So maybe that's the case. Right? We're talking about object A and object B. So tefillin 1, tefillin 2, right? This is the 1, this is the 2. Maybe there it is. And there again, so Rabbi talks about and others. And there again, we can reject the comparison to mezuzah for the following reason. Because each time you put on tefillin, or you have a new pair of tefillin, so it's a new mitzvah. It's not necessarily that there's one continuous mitzvah throughout the day to wear tefillin. Proof of that is, we don't do this anymore. Once upon a time, what people did from the morning, the entire day, you wore your tefillin. Now we only wear them for shachrit. And once you put them on, you fulfill the mitzvah. So again, you're starting a new mitzvah again. Maybe that's not the same as the case of mezuzah, where there is one continuous mitzvah the whole time for the mezuzah to be on the day. Okay. Where do we find? The Maariv suggests, so attempt number 3, that maybe the point is, what did we have in mind when we said the bracha originally? When you originally put the mezuzah on the doorpost, and you said the bracha, the mezuzah. So you had intent that you were fulfilling not just the mitzvah of mezuzah generally, but that specifically with this mitzvah that you were fulfilling it. You weren't thinking about anything else. Where do we have another case like this? So we have another case like this in the Chot Shofar. Very interesting. The Torah Shulchan discusses. So when the Baal Tokeh makes the bracha, so he's saying the bracha, of the mitzvah of hearing the shofar, not just for the one who's blowing it, obviously for the entire game. So there's a case. So the Torah discusses what if the Baal Tokeh says the bracha and then he leaves, or he can't, for whatever reason, he can't. He gets called out. He can't go to the shofar. Is it a bracha levatala? So first of all, we say it's not a bracha levatala because it's not just for him; it's for everybody else. Somebody else, the guy next to him, picks up the shofar and he blows. You've still fulfilled everybody else fulfilled the mitzvah, and everybody else was from his bracha. However, what if we switch the shofar? What if the person, it often happens about the Baal counted 2 shofar, 3 shofar, whatever it is in front of him. Sometimes it happens, whatever reason, the shofar, the notes just don't come out. So he puts that shofar down and he picks another one. Yeah. So if he had 2 shofar in front of him in the first place, when he said the bracha, so okay, so this shofar, he knows he's got shofar A, doesn't work with shofar A, pick up shofar B. That's fine, there's no need to say a new bracha. However, if the Mishnah Berurah points out that it says, like this, he says, let's say you just had 1 shofar. So you say the bracha, you start the tzkiyot, the first 2 tzkiyot come out perfectly, and then, for whatever reason, it's not working. So he puts it down, they bring another shofar from across the road, wherever it is, across the city. Okay, since you said the bracha and you started the tkiyot, there's no need to repeat the bracha. The bracha is fine. And aval ben bracha mitchilat tkiyot tzarech levarach. If the case was you said the bracha and you've not yet fulfilled the mitzvah, and that shofar goes away for whatever reason, you bring a new shofar. So it's new bracha. The bracha didn't apply. You had the bracha, you said the bracha, you had in mind for the shofar that's there. You didn't have in mind for a shofar that's going to come from somewhere else, and therefore a new bracha will be required. Maybe you can say the same thing when it comes to the mezuzah. When the mezuzah was put up in the first place, it was the bracha was said, the intent for this mezuzah, not the intent for a different mezuzah. A new mezuzah is going to come in, it's going to come in later, and that may require its own bracha. May require its own bracha. Kal v'chomer, says Rav Frank in How to Speak, says, what if you weren't the one who put the mezuzah up in the first place? And you never said the bracha. So there's an interesting case. The person moves into an apartment, and there already are mezuzot up on the walls. So whoever was living there before, when they put up the mezuzah, they said the bracha. Now, I wasn't part of it. Even if you were there, and even if you heard the bracha, it wasn't your field because it's not your house, right? It's not the house where you're living in. So there could be an argument to say that when you walk in, you have to maybe take it off and put it back on and say the bracha. Because the same way when it comes to, you don't have to do this. But the same way that when it comes to tzitzit, for example, you put them on, you say the bracha when you're putting on the tzitzit. If you didn't say the bracha for whatever reason, or the poshkim mashmesh, but tzitzit, you pick up the tzitzit and you spill them, and then you can still say the bracha so long as you're wearing it. So he says maybe the same thing when it comes to the mezuzah. So ultimately, they say like this. They say we're not going to require mezuzah up on the door, somebody moves in, not going to require you to say the new bracha, we're not going to require you to take off the mezuzah and put it back on. So it would seem, therefore, that if you took the mezuzah and we're putting it back on anyway, so then you would enter the realm of a new field. But certainly that's still questionable. But certainly, if you're going to take that mezuzah down and put a new mezuzah, so you never said the bracha on this in the first place, and now it's a new mezuzah as well. So then certainly there would seem to be much greater room to say the bracha. If we add in the factors that we mentioned yesterday as well, if it's been you've taken it down and it's been down for more than there's going to get into a safek, it's going to get into a doubt. You're putting a new mezuzah up immediately. In such a case, it's probably better to take it down the next day or the day after, whatever, you put up a new mezuzah. So based on the fact that it's been a long time and the fact that you're taking it down and it's a new one, and you never said the bracha, so then it would seem much clearer that the bracha would be required. And anyway, now I think it's not a good explainer.